The THX program was launched, quite famously because George Lucas was unhappy with what he saw when he went to the movies. So he charged this fellow named Tomlinson Holman with the task of creating a standard for movie theaters. But he was very interested, as were a lot of the mix engineers and sound engineers at Lucasfilm. They were very interested in working at home or having a better experience at home. He said, okay, let's do some experiments and set up some really good hi-fi gear in people's homes, people who really know what this stuff's supposed to sound like, and see what happens. What they discovered was it didn't sound the same as it did in the studio. Tom took this desire and set up the THX home theater program. And it included two parts. It included an education program to tell people what to do with the gear, and it included a very complete set of requirements for the manufacturers.
So we started with receivers, and we were looking primarily at high-end receivers. The thought was maybe we could recreate sound levels and something of the sound quality that people heard on a sound stage or a dubbing stage.
One of the really key points about our receivers is that they recreate reference level. Well, what is reference level? Reference level is the same level that you get in the mix rooms when they were doing a final mix of the audio.
It was pretty important that if you played the same movie in half a dozen different cinemas, it didn't deafen people in one, or they put their hand to their ear and said, what's going on in another. So a repeatable sound level that was acceptable to most people was the key.
What THX has done is we've created and make sure that all of the specifications have been made so that you recreate that sound pressure level, that you have a really flat frequency response, that the bass management is done correctly so that when you hook up main speakers and a subwoofer, that they blend really properly.
There's all sorts of things that we look at that guarantee that our specification improves your listening experience.
Well, in the early days, we thought we would get into video, but it turned out to be very complicated. There wasn't a lot of agreement about standards.
At the time, we had created a specification that no one in the industry could meet. And we were left with a dilemma. Do we change our specification and certify something so that we can get started with the program? Or do we wait until technology was able to get better? So we decided to do the latter.
We always took the view that the best sets would be ones that were capable of giving a true, accurate rendition of the displays that people would use when they're first doing the mix work and transfers in the studios.
With the introduction of HD video in projection and in flat panels, you can now have a picture at home that is every bit as good as the picture in a theater.
All of the THX certified TVs have a THX mode, and that THX mode, once you hit the THX preset, makes the TV settings all the way the broadcasters set them up, the way the cinemas, the way the post houses set them up, so that the color is right, the grayscale is right, and the signal processing is exactly the way it should be, so that you can recreate all of these in these different programs the way it's intended to be.
These days, the role that THX plays is very analogous to an editor in a textbook, where pretty much everything has to be right.
Well, the first thing that we do is with licensees is to make sure they have a copy of the specification so they know every test that's going to be conducted on the device, how we measure it and what the numbers are going to be in order to reach certification. And then they ship in samples and we then test to that.
If there's anything that's not meeting our specification, we'll require them to make changes. Either they'll send us new firmware or they'll send us new test samples that we'll evaluate. And from there, it's an iterative process going back and forth and explaining what our findings are.
To this day, nobody ever submits a product to THX that doesn't need a few things tweaked on it, or in some cases, it really needs to go back to the drawing board.
We've always taken the view that so much care and attention has gone into creating the soundtrack and also the picture for movies. It would be an awful shame if people never had the opportunity to say whether they liked it or not. So we are a sort of defender of the faith in that sense.
THX has the great privilege of being able to work in the studios being experts in every piece of the chain of development of entertainment, both picture and sound, making sure that the products that bear our logo will actually do their part and do it really well, and that you have the best, most realistic experience of that particular piece of entertainment as it was created in the studio.